Hey, Pam, have you ever heard the phrase, a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth can even get its boots on?
I have. That's a Mark Twain quote, isn't it? Are we going to be exploring the lies that are told and shared in the media today?
Well, we're going to be exploring feelings and facts. And we're going to take a deep dive into conspiracy theories, one of the ingredients that leads to polarization and sometimes to the hate that leads to targeted violence and terrorism. I'm Renee Hobbs, director of the Media Education Lab.
And I'm Pam Stager, Director of Public Engagement for Courageous Rhode Island. Welcome to this courageous conversation, and thanks for joining us today. We're gathered here for Courageous Conversations because we want to help people recognize and resist the media messages that contribute to polarization and violence. So, Renee, back to that Mark Twain quote. It seems to be true that urban legends, conspiracy theories, and bogus public health scares circulate effortlessly, yet people with well-researched, important ideas often struggle to make their ideas stick. Why is that?
To understand why, we have to talk about how we decide what to believe. More than facts, it turns out that stories and the feelings they elicit are a very important component of deciding what to believe. The concept is called narrative persuasion. Cognitive scientists have documented over and over that when it comes to perception, attention, learning, memory, and reasoning and problem solving, emotion has a particularly strong influence. Feelings are a prime driver for motivating action and behavior.
In our courageous conversation on conflict entrepreneurs, we also touched on the power of emotions in media messages.
That's right.
We learned about the economic system that underpins mass media and social media, and the 6 different strategies used to heighten conflict for pleasure, profit, and power. We also learned that conflict entrepreneurs can cause harm when their efforts inspire us versus them thinking that can lead to violence.
Exactly. In that session, we talked about how outrage and anger can be monetized. But today we want to understand how stories can activate people's emotion, their curiosity, even their sense of mystery. That's why stories can be so very persuasive and very profitable. Now, what are the key ingredients of a story? They're exactly what makes stories so much more memorable than facts. We naturally identify with the heroes, the villains, and the victims that are present in all good stories, because all good stories have some kind of conflict. You can see how truly memorable stories are when you consider this little experiment. This experiment was conducted by the authors of a great book about learning called Make It Stick by Peter C. Brown. Divide students into 2 groups. Ask students to prepare a 1-minute speech on whether violent crime is a serious problem in the U.S. Make half of the students argue in the affirmative, make the other half argue in the negative. In one study where this procedure was used, the students used 2.5 statistics on average in their short speeches, but only 1 in 10 kids told a story. 10 minutes later, the teacher gives all the students a blank sheet of paper and says, write down all the ideas you can remember. And guess what? Only 5% of students remembered any of the statistics, whereas 63% of them remembered the stories.
Wow, that is a fascinating statistic. But when I think about it, it rings true from my experience both in the classroom as an educator and on stage as a storyteller. So let's watch a short video now that presents some other reasons why facts don't convince people. As you watch, think about the arguments, evidence, and reasoning used. Then we'll talk about the video's main ideas, and we'll critically analyze it as well.
If you've spent any time on Earth, you might have noticed that humans are not the most rational of creatures. We make decisions based mostly on emotions instead of facts, and a lot of times we're guided by tribal instinct. Part of the problem is that the human brain evolved to help us survive, and not necessarily to help us be factually accurate. So we often respond better to social and tribal dynamics than to intellectual analysis. For example, if someone's tribe believes that Obama is a secret Muslim born in Kenya, that person probably thinks the hard proof of his US birth certificate is fake. That conclusion is neither rational nor accurate. But from a tribal perspective, it makes sense. It's safer to agree with your tribe and stay united ideologically, even if you're wrong about the facts, than to disagree and isolate yourself. Another part of the problem is that our brain is constantly protecting our worldview and sense of identity. So when our worldview is challenged, that same part of the brain that processes physical danger gets activated. This is why people sometimes react so aggressively to information that proves them wrong. And this is why it's often so hard to have an intelligent political debate. Several studies have also shown that there is a backfire effect that happens when people encounter facts that contradict their current beliefs. They actually become more convinced of their original ideas. So fighting ignorance with facts is like fighting a grease fire with water. It seems like it should work, but it actually just makes the whole thing worse. Lastly, there's the problem of lack of empathy. Several studies have found that when humans are divided into groups of any kind, we instinctively become less empathetic to members of other groups. That means that for survival's sake, we might instinctively empathize less with other races, other nationalities, and even other sports teams. This instinctive dehumanization of other groups is what makes things like slavery and genocide possible in our society. So, what can you do? If you want someone to consider factual information that clashes with their beliefs, first, you have to prevent their brain from seeing you as a personal threat. So, look for ways to identify the person as part of your tribe and you as part of theirs. Hey, we're part of the same family. Hey, we're both parents. Hey, we both still play Pokemon Go. Whatever. Anything that communicates that you're part of the same tribe. That's the first step. Second, consider the possibility that you may be wrong. Maybe the facts are not on your side, in which case admitting it will help you model to the other person that it's okay to be wrong. I understand that none of this is easy or smooth, but if we want to continue to function as a stable society, we have to learn to get past our own natural biases. Only when that happens, we will be able to move forward towards a better future. Peace.
Let's talk about that clip. At the Media Education Lab, we never just show a video and assume people get the same meaning. We always ask questions that invite people to share their own interpretations. So here's the question, Renee. What were some key ideas expressed in this video? Do you remember when we discussed this with our Courageous Rhode Island team?
Yeah, we loved this video. We had a lot of different takeaways when we watched. One big idea, recognizing that humans make decisions on emotions, not facts.
Yeah, and I can remember somebody saying how we respond to tribal dynamics. This shapes our understanding of what's true.
Yeah, it's safer to stick with your tribe and agree with them than go against them and risk being othered.
Yeah, and also when our worldview is challenged, we feel a sense of danger, and the primitive protective part of our brain is triggered.
So fascinating, the backfire effect, where we become more convinced of our pre-existing beliefs when they're challenged by others.
Yeah, and when we're divided, we become less empathic with other groups.
Right. To reduce the threat, communicate that you're part of the same tribe in some way. I loved that idea.
Yeah, and also that if you discover you're wrong about something, model that it's okay to admit that you're wrong. That's not always easy for educators.
For sure. It turns out that exposure to differing interpretations helps build media literacy and listening competencies. Now, we shared ideas that we got out of that video. Now let's critically analyze the video. Pam, when you critically analyzed the video, what did you notice about how it was constructed?
Well, I'm not sure about the author of the video, but their purpose seems clear from their name: social good now. The target audience seems to be young people because of the animation, lots of action in still frames, the brevity and simplicity of it all. There
Yeah.
was a use of the voiceover, fast talking, sound effects, bright primary colors. It was simple, but using diverse figures all added to holding my interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I think
wasn't crazy about their depiction of tribal people being stereotypes of Native Americans, but the grease fire analogy worked for me.
so. You're noticing some of the ways that the production techniques were communicating some values, right? We're communicating some ideologies. Uh,
Yeah.
So we are very influenced by our tribes, and the people and the groups that we identify with are shaping our worldview, and admitting our own biases and the ability to admit you're wrong is healthy. I think the values message came through very strongly through the production techniques that were used in this animation. And then we always ask that question, what's missing? Of course, this is one narrator with one story where there's no sources. So what's the backup research for this information? We kind of have to just trust that this information is accurate. So when we critically analyze this video, we definitely notice that it has a set of values and a point of view embedded in it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right,
So
so we critically analyze this video. Oh, you know what, Pam? I went and looked at the YouTube video to look at the comments. That's another way to analyze a video message, to see how other people interpret it. And the author, the trail of comments revealed your concern about the way that people of color, minority groups, are represented through animation. And the author even kind of apologizes in there, recognizing that he wasn't aware of the stereotype that he was visually using.
oh, that's interesting. That's a courageous conversation right there.
So conspiracy theories are stories that have unique features as well. They're often stories that focus on the action of a secret, mysterious, powerful group of people. They're conspirators, and they do something that causes great harm, but they do it in secret. And their lack of evidence about what they do is basically based on their power and their secrecy. And we love these kind of stories because there's heroes, there's villains, there's victims, and there's conflict. And truthfully, I have a love-hate relationship with conspiracy theories. I find them very compelling. Pam, what conspiracy theories are you attracted to or familiar with?
Well, I remember being very intrigued as a teenager with all the conspiracy theories swirling around President Kennedy's death, because that affected me a lot. And more recently, a woman in a weekly class I was in told me to check out QAnon, which I hadn't heard of before. And looking into that whole world was both fascinating and scary.
Indeed, indeed. So one thing I think is important to emphasize is that conspiracies and conspiracy theories are different, but related. A conspiracy is when a group of individuals gather to plan and execute an illegal action. So the image on the left shows a tweet about a conspiracy trial underway right now about a group of people who planned the January 6th insurrection. This message was spread by Tucker Carlson before he got fired.
The one on the right, yeah, the tweet about the conspiracy theory that the FBI was responsible for the January 6th insurrection. I remember that. People love a mystery. Think of how popular murder mysteries are, both in book or TV series form. Stories that have a mystery or conspiracy angle are perceived as more interesting than other stories. So there's the entertainment value of the unknown to consider. They're like catnip to cats, hard to resist.
And Weirdly and importantly, sometimes a conspiracy theory is proved to be true. That's another reason why they're so attractive to us. Think about the case of the Tuskegee syphilis tragedy, where hospital workers were intentionally harming Black men by not treating them for the disease. It took years and years for a courageous researcher to amass the evidence needed to uncover this conspiracy. It was a conspiracy theory until it was actually proved to be a conspiracy. So, here are some discussion questions we'd like you to work on today. What are some conspiracy theories that you've encountered recently? What are the different feelings that these stories evoke for you? And which of these conspiracy theories are harmless? Which ones are harmful, and why? Now, remember that conspiracy theories may be harmless, but some have real and measurable effects on people's health, finances, and other decisions. We're hoping that as you work in your small group, you can identify and reflect on some of the general qualities that make a conspiracy theory harmful or harmless.
Time to join the discussion. Follow the discussion guidelines and have fun.
They're going to have a courageous conversation. Wow.